You're listening to the Why That Work podcast presented by StoryBrand.ai. If you've ever wondered why certain brands, trends, or cultural phenomena find success while others don't, you're in the right place. Every week we unpack why something worked, then give you actionable insights that you can use in your own life. Now let's dive in with your hosts, Donald Miller and Kyle Reed. Hey everybody, podcast producer Bobby Richards here, and today on the show, we're talking about why marriage works. Not the fairy tale version, but the real, messy, transformative kind. Now, if you've ever wondered what makes a marriage thrive, you're absolutely in the right place. Many couples struggle because they expect love to be effortless, but a real marriage takes intention, resilience, and a deep understanding of one another. And sharing their personal story around all of this are today's guests, Abner Ramirez and Amanda Sudano Ramirez, the musical powerhouse duo known as Johnnyswim. They tour together. They've been doing that for over a decade. They've been raising a family and they're building a life side by side. All of that has tested and strengthened their relationship in ways that they never expected. And they're going to get into that today. So whether you're married, you're thinking about marriage, or you're just curious about what makes relationships last, this conversation is going to give you a fresh perspective. Let's get into it.
We have to be talking about marriage on a day when Johnnyswim came in to do a little tiny desk concert.
Heck yeah.
And so we thought, well, you guys are married and you've done it on a tour bus. You've been married on a tour bus for a decade.
Yeah.
And if that's not a grueling test, first of all, congratulations on staying married.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now teach us your
doing it.
secrets.
Teach us how you're doing it.
Just you figured it out, so tell us everything you know.
Well, the
Go.
good news is
We've
we have
won at
all
therapy,
the
so
answers.
we know for sure.
If you ask our therapist, he really doesn't know what his job is for us anymore.
He pays
he
you.
just sits there shaking.
He pays
He
you.
takes notes for other people.
Yeah, smart. That's good. That's good.
I'm very curious, though, what your opinions. Have you ever had sort of a philosophical thought of like marriage and why it exists and what the purpose of it is? What do you see the purpose of marriage? Is it to make records?
Well, for us, it's financially beneficial.
You don't have to pay the talent as much.
People love seeing a married couple on stage, and it pays. So, we go our separate ways afterwards. No, it's funny about marriage because I grew up in church, grew up little Southern Baptist kid in Florida, and was always preached to. I had my promise ring. I kissed dating goodbye. I did all this stuff.
Did you really?
Right? I really did, yeah. Well, I didn't succeed. I didn't do it successfully. It's funny. She wore my promise ring on our wedding day around her necklace.
My neck. I was like, I'm reclaiming the promise
That's
ring.
right.
Yeah. I was always preached to God has one for you. There's the one for you. And even as a kid, I never believed that. That never computed because the math just couldn't math. Like if everybody has a person, so all it takes is one idiot to mess up the algorithm for everybody.
You figured that out really early.
Yeah, I was like, this just can't be, can't be how it is, right? And
See, my brain would have said, so I get 3.
That's right. I get a few chances then.
Yeah,
I figured it out because somebody messed it up. And it literally was in Brentwood, Tennessee. I was at a church because I was dating a different girl that said I had to go to church with her if we were going to keep dating, and I saw Amanda across the room, and I literally said out loud, "That's the girl I'm going to marry." Wow. And it was this really profound. And there's no way for me to lie about it because it's as ridiculous as it sounds. It changed my life. I was a player, as it were. I had probably
How old were you?
I was 19. 18 maybe, but 19. 19-year-old
I
kid.
found the promise ring is a great way to reel in chicks.
Honestly, same. And honestly, I kissed dating goodbye at tours back in the day, and like the promise ring tour stuff. That was a great place to meet girls as well. Like truly, just say a couple of the right things and you're golden. 18-year-old Abner was a pro at that. But at 19, when I first saw her, it literally changed my life. I got dumped because I was sitting next to the girl that I was dating.
Out loud.
I said out loud, "That's the girl I'm gonna marry."
Did you really say it out loud?
I said it out loud and got dumped, literally right there in that seat. And it was my last breakup.
You elbowed your date and said, "That's the girl I'm gonna marry."
She elbowed me. I was like, "That's the girl I'm gonna marry." And she goes, "What?" I said, "That's the girl. Oh, that's the girl I'm gonna marry." And she elbowed me in the ribs. She said, "I guess you better go talk to her then." And I was like, Yeah, I should. So I got up at church to go holler at Amanda. And she did the one thing I was unprepared for. She rolled her eyes at me. And I sat down in the nearest pew and didn't meet her for 4 years after that. Wow. Like literally 4 years went by, but I never dated again.
Do you have a memory of this, Amanda?
Yeah, I remember seeing him with not just one girl, multiple girls, multiple times at church. And so when he came up to talk to me, I was like, I have good discernment, sir. Please don't talk to me. Wow. But I also did think he was cute. So I was like, he's really cute, but I see who he hangs out with, and I see like I'm not here for this.
Yeah.
And also, if he's hanging out with those girls, he's not gonna like me because I was also not that. I don't know. I was like a dork, and I went to Vanderbilt, and I would crawl out of my dorm to go to church with my parents, and I'd put my glasses on and like barely brush my hair. So I was like, you don't want this if you're hanging out with the girls that are coming to church like this. So it was 4 years, and then we saw each other at a coffee shop, Cafe Coco.
Did you not forget her?
No. Did not, absolutely could not, would not. I started stalking her online.
Yeah.
And during those 4 years, she moved to New York, was a model. I had the early Google alerts where you would just Google somebody every day.
And you set up with her?
Wow.
I'd get a ping, really, whenever she did a new shoot or whatever.
Moved.
And I had a folder on my desktop of pictures of Amanda.
And you said yes. Wow.
So what happened was,
You can have it.
we saw each other. I walked into Cafe Coco.
Yeah.
And our dear friend Matt Carney, who's also a musician, was his roommate at the time, and I knew Matt from when I was in high school. And so I saw Matt. I didn't see Abner. His back was to me, and I go, "Oh my gosh, Matt!" And he turns around, or Matt says hi, and he goes, "Oh, do you know my roommate Abner?" And Abner turns around, and looks at me, and all he said was, "I've been waiting to meet you for so long." And I was like, "Excuse me?" And so he asked if he could come sit with me and my friend and have coffee. I was dating somebody else at the time, so I was just kind of like curious, I guess. And he sat down and talked. I was texting all my single friends, like, I met the sweetest guy. I thought he was going to be horrible and a player, but he's actually amazing, and one of you should date him.
Over the last 4 years.
Yeah, he had changed over the last 4 years. But yeah, and
How'd you change?
I literally kissed dating goodbye at that moment when I got dumped that day at church.
You hadn't dated for 4 years?
I'd stopped. I never had another girlfriend until the day I started dating her 4 years later.
Come on.
No, truly. And it's funny, I made it known. Like, there would be like, because I was raised by women, right? Like, I have two older sisters, my mom and my grandma. And so I'd get comfortable with a girl at work or whatever, and I could tell she thought this was going somewhere. And I would tell the girl at work, "Hey, just so you know, like, I'm not dating anybody. Like, this isn't, I like being around you, and I like when we all hang out, but I'm not trying to have anything right now. I'm working on me." And it was a real answer. And I know the question was, what do you think the purpose of marriage is for us?
No, I like this conversation better.
And it's hard for me to divide the pragmatic, practical answer from the kind of magical feeling, because I never believed in the magic of relationships or the cosmic kind of sentiment of the one until I met her. And so even my practical sentiment, which is truly, I think it could boil down to, I could never be my truest self if I never married her. I would never be my fullest self if I didn't have my wife. I've talked to her ex-boyfriend once, and I won't name him. And I remember he came up to me at church one day after we were married, and he's like, he's a male model. When we started dating, this dude was on every magazine that I had a subscription to.
That's trouble.
It was the worst thing. He was an underwear model, so it made it even worse. And I remember he came up to me and he was like, people say, "Who's the love of your life?" And I tell him about Amanda, and they're like, "Oh, is she single?" And he's like, "No, she's married to somebody." He's like, "Oh, maybe they'll break up and you still have a chance." And he's saying this to me as a compliment, believe it or not. He's like, "No," and I'm like, "No, she's married to a good dude. Like, he's fine. Da, da, da. And one day I'm gonna get my wife. One day I'm gonna get that level up." He's talking about it kind of the way I thought about marriage, like a really shiny trophy, or like this thing that you should have, or like this addition to you. It's me plus wife equals a thing. And I tried to express it to him, and I think it was the first time I tried to put words to it. I was like, "Bro, this isn't about," first of all, yeah, I am a good guy and she's stuck with me forever. But second of all, like, you're not looking to add to your life when you get married. If you're looking to add to your life, and I'm not saying this as advice because we say we don't give advice, but if you're looking to add to your life by adding a partner, I think you're already kind of messing up, because it's not about us. There's this separation. These two
if
things.
You don't see, if you don't see it as a challenge designed to transform you,
it absolutely has to transform you.
It is not. It's not being completed.
No, it is being completely transformed. It's like, it doesn't matter how little bit of food coloring you put into how big a bucket of water. That water is a different color. With just the littlest bit. And we're talking about half and half. We're talking about completely transforming who you are. I'm sure at some point there will be scientific evidence that on a molecular level you are different when you bond, not just through the act of getting in front of God and all your friends and saying you'll be together till you die, but through living life together. I believe molecularly, it has to be true. You change, because I am a completely different human because of my wife. And I like this human.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw somebody say, when you love the right person, you end up loving yourself more too, like, because you know the things about yourself that you love. Yeah. My favorite part about that story with my ex, though, he didn't get to, which he said, basically a beautiful speech like this to him, what we just talked about. And my ex's reply was, you said something cool, I said something cool. Bye. Or I said something cool, you said something like that. And we were like, okay,
You want to touch my abs?
Yeah, exactly. And we're like, that checks, you know? So
That's
that
what I
was
do
the end of
when
that.
somebody's just better than me. I just go, well, look at my abs.
Yeah, exactly. Check this out. Exactly.
If you don't communicate clearly, all your emails, your website, social media posts, everything you're communicating will be ignored. StoryBrand.ai is like the world's best communication expert writing it for you. Imagine having the world's best communicator writing your tagline. Just type in the name of your company, answer a few prompts, and voila. Hey, that's a good one. Use it to write your social media posts, website wireframe, emails, lead generating PDF, product or service descriptions, anything you need for your business. What would happen to your revenue if every word that left your business was crystal clear and worth paying attention to? StoryBrand.ai is your competitive advantage, so you'll say it clearly. Try it right now and let us write your custom tagline for free at StoryBrand.ai.
And now back to the show.
You guys are amazing on stage. The music that you write is amazing. You're currently working on a musical in the West End.
Yeah,
in
we can't tell you
London.
what it is
Can't tell you what it
publicly,
is.
but we can tell you that we're working on our first musical.
Wow.
It's on the West End. It will be on the West End. It's not like we've been praying for a decade, literally asking God. At the beginning of every year, we do a dream session where we write down our dreams for the year. And for 10 years, we'd written down, we want to be a part of a musical. We want to write a musical. It finally happened. And we thought, you'd get your first chance and you'd write a little thing and then you get your second chance. This is owned by a massive production company, the IP. It's fully funded and financed, set for the West End, set for Broadway. It's like kind of the highest level you can start at.
Of course, anything
ever.
could go wrong between now
Of course, we
and
could write the biggest trash musical ever and they'll
Yeah.
just cut us out and
It's
start
not gonna
over.
happen.
But the trajectory we're on is a really big first at bat. It's
Yeah.
like, you're batting cleanup and you just got called up from the minors and it's the World Series. And so it is nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Is there a marriage theme to it at all? Is it relational?
Oh.
It
It
is.
is very
How much are you allowed in the non-disclosure?
We just can't
to
tell you the name
actually-
of it.
I think
Okay,
we need to
fair
think
enough.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about relationship. And what drew us to the project, there's a novel by the same name that I can't say. But it feels like it's a will they, won't they. It's clearly about these two people. And a couple pages in, I'm like, are they going to get together or not? How much am I going to have to read until they get together? And then you realize quickly that it's not about the payoff of do they get married or not.
Yeah.
It's about some cosmic pull that it's reminded me of the first thing I said to Amanda after I've been waiting so long to meet you. The first thing I said to her after we hung out for a couple days was, I would marry you tomorrow. I'd be your best friend the rest of your life. I'll walk you down the aisle to marry somebody else. I don't really care. I just know I'm meant to be around you. I just feel like I'm supposed
That's
to
what
be
you
around
told her?
I told her day 2.
He also told me about the folder with the pictures of me.
You told her that?
Yeah,
Full out.
and I actually
Full out, yeah.
had started my own folder of him after I met him at the coffee shop to show my friends. So I was like, I actually have a folder of
Wow.
you too.
Yeah.
And that's how we knew we were meant to be.
And so the
We're
story,
both stalkers.
That's
It's
it.
true.
That's the moral of this episode.
Two stalkers
Completely.
find,
Stalk
two stalkers
people,
find each other.
There's
get
a
a
hat
great
for every
wife or
head.
husband.
Exactly.
That's great.
and so this story is like it's about that cosmic kind of pull to each other that's almost greater than romance, which I would categorize marriage as. Romance is beautiful and it's a part of it. It's a major part of it, and you have to keep that healthy and pay attention to it. But there's so much more than just the romantic element of a marriage. And this story that we're writing, this musical that we have the great privilege and honor and weight to write, is about more than just will they or won't they. It's about that cosmic pull of two people together.
Yeah, and I'm not allowed to say the title of it, but it does rhyme with 50 blades of
51.
50 blades
Yeah,
of
yeah,
clay.
yeah, yeah.
Now something
Rhymes with the title of the musical.
Right, exactly.
It's not.
something we can
That
talk
would make
about
money, by the
though
way.
Yes,
is you guys just released a new album.
we did.
Now tell
we did.
now I don't want to make an
It's called
assumption.
When the War's Over.
But
we
what-
should say that.
What's the title? Why is it called
Were you
that?
going there?
What's
All
the
right.
what's the
Yeah,
title?
speaking
about?
of marriage,
Yeah,
Yes.
what? 'Cause
I know.
as a married man, I
Yeah.
myself, I'm like, well, there's something going on here. So
Listen.
tell me about
What's
the
the
title
war?
of this.
What's
so
the war?
though it's us against the world in it. It's not us. The war isn't between us.
love that.
The war is out there, and it's us fighting together. The title comes from a song on the album that was a diary entry of mine. I started having a bunch of health issues after getting COVID. We thought it was long COVID. It's not. It's something else. But and it's gotten a lot better. But there was months where I was just in bed and we didn't know what was going on. I was going to doctors all the time, and he was had come out of a season of depression, which he had never dealt with in his life before. And
Which I didn't even believe in. Like, I thought depression and like motion sickness were both imaginary things to me.
You thought motion sickness?
Yeah, I didn't believe in motion sickness. I remember driving to Malibu and she'd be like, "Babe, you have to like drive slower." I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "My tummy." I was like, "Oh, my tummy." What are we talking about?
Anyway, back to how marriage works.
Sorry, but then I got motion sickness. I was like, people deal with this? It's unbelievable. And depression was the same kind of thing. I'd never considered it being a real thing, really. I knew people had it, just like I knew people had webbed toes or something. It's just not something I deal with.
Yeah.
And then it became a debilitating crisis in my life, similar to motion sickness.
Yeah.
All right, sorry. So that was my thing, was depression. Hers was a physical health crisis.
Yeah, so it was the diary entry that I wrote because I was talking to him about it, and I was like, after a year and a half of dealing with this, even if I woke up tomorrow and my body was perfectly healthy, I'm not the same person. Like, I feel traumatized by this whole experience, and I don't know the thread between me and like quote unquote normal Amanda, the person I was before I experienced this. There's no thread anymore. Like, I feel like I'm a completely different person. I don't know. I can remember how happy she'd be doing this and that, and now like I'm scared doing those things. And even if I felt better, I think I would still feel afraid, and I would still feel sad, and I would still have this grief that I lost these years of my life. And so I wrote this little poem in my journal called "When the War is Over," and I brought it to Abner. And it's basically, when the war is over, will I even know? Will I be able to get back to that person that I was? Will I remember what it feels like after fighting something for so long, what it feels like to just be able to be at peace again? And that's what that song is. And then we just decided to name the album it, mostly because we wanted to name it Psilocybin, and our management said, "I don't think that's a good idea." Yeah.
might
which
sell
is
pretty
another
well,
song
too.
on the album. But our management was like, maybe something else. And so we were like, well, what else encapsulates kind of the season and where these songs came out of? And "When the War is Over" was the one.
How did your marriage kind of get you through? It sounds like two really, really hard times.
I think the amazing thing, back to our therapist, Tim Long, who's wonderful. But when Abner started Abner's journey kind of started before my health journey. And so we would go to him and he would have us sit down together, even though it was kind of, at the time, it was like I was doing great and my life felt good, but he was not doing well. So therefore, we weren't doing well. And he would have us sit together. So while Abner was, working through all the stuff that he was working through, I was there to support him that whole time. And so we really built this, other layer of trust with one another, this other layer of support for one another, of being each other's teammate, that I think that experience really prepped us for the next part of the journey, which was my part of the journey, where he was sitting with me as I was dealing with all the things and dealing with grief and, all the stuff that I was going through. And he could sit there and know how to, for lack of a better term, hold space for one another. So it really created, I think, a much deeper bond, and also just an understanding. Like, there was, for example, there was one time where I was not feeling well, which was a very normal occurrence, and I wanted him to just be with me. We were on tour, we were on the tour bus, and I was like, I just don't feel good, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. And he just kind of sat with me for a second and was like, okay, well, I gotta go, and like went out, and they like went and got drinks. They were in New Orleans, they went to a jazz bar and whatever, and I'm like alone in my bunk. And so he came back, and I was really upset and felt like really alone. So we, when we got back from tour, we sat with Tim and we kind of worked on it together. And he started talking about the helplessness that he felt when I was not doing well. There was nothing that he could do. And so even just the thought of sitting there with me was hard and overwhelming for him, because he wanted to be able to help. And I was like, well, that made me feel lonely. But even just the fact that we could go back home and go, hey, what was going on in you during that time, and not let it fester and get back on the same page, it's made that much more of a difference, to where now when it happens, he knows, just give me 5 minutes. Like, that's really all I need. And I know, oh, this is hard for him, and it's hard for him to like want to help and not be able to help, because that's his drive to do. Then we can be back on the same page again. So it's really been, for as rough of a 2 years as it's been an amazing 2 years for us emotionally together.
Yeah.
A lot of growing. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm curious, you're Abner, from when you first saw her across the room, what's changed in your mind about marriage, relationships to today? It sounds like you had a beautiful picture of what marriage relationships are. How has that changed today?
I saw marriage like a finish line, or even relationship. Like you just kind of achieve the thing, and now you have the temple, you have whatever. It's just there. It's the beginning of the race. It's the beginning of the journey. And I realized that the finish line is the thought of a finish line is completely evaporated. The only finish line is toe tags and body bags. That's the only finish line. That constant growth, constant movement, like a river. We say often we are rivers, not lakes. And we talk about that with money, with helping folks, with all kinds of stuff, but also relationally. We are rivers, not lakes. This usness doesn't just sit and fester and gather dust. You know what I mean? This usness is constantly moving, and that means a lot of things. That means we change and we grow as people. God forbid we stay the same. My biggest fear as a married man was that she would ever be able to say about me, that's not the man I married. Because you go through seasons in life, everybody's dating, everybody gets married, everybody has kids, and then you go through the divorce season where everybody's getting divorced. And like the big quote that I would hear when friends were going through those times was, she's just not the person I married, or he's not the man I married anymore. And I want the man I married, not this guy. And that was like the big kind of justification to the big move on. And my greatest fear was to ever hear her say that. And so there's a song in the album called Psilocybin. When I was deep, like lost in my depression and was having a hard time catching my breath, as it were. I came to the room in the studio where she was writing a song and asked her what song she was writing. And she said, it's actually a song for you. And it's a song about me changing. And it's essentially a song that says, you're not the man that I married. And the chorus says, but if you change, I'm changing too. And it was the most, to my core, man, and even to your question, like what's changed about my perspective of marriage is really, you hear it from childhood, it's two becoming one. There's a oneness, there's all this stuff. But man, if it's not the truth, if that's not just the beginning of the layers of the onion, just how one marriage is meant to be, that for my wife, it's not even a love song, but it's the most romantic thing I've ever heard. If you change, I'm changing too. If you're not the man I married, then I'm not the woman you married, and we're going the same way together. We're going to take that journey together. So that's probably the biggest thing that's
amazing.
Changed
I have
from
a
that
friend
day.
that says about his wife, if you ever leave me, I'm going with you.
Yeah.
The album is When the War is Over. The band, the couple is Johnyswim. So grateful to have you on the show.
Honored to be here.
Now we're going to go get to listen to you guys
Now we're gonna
sing some music for us. It's awesome.
1, 2, 3, and 4. Rolling round the corner, down by the canyon. I met a man who lost his way, still up the fire. With your wine in your bloodshot, crying, thinking like you're dying, never pays. Just go home on your knees and somehow, hey you, we are Johnyswim. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for listening to the Why That Worked podcast presented by StoryBrand.ai. If you like the show, follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're enjoying this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment letting us know what you think and what you want the guys to talk about in a future episode. Curious about how StoryBrand.ai can help you create clear, effective messaging? Well, you can try it out right now and create a free customized tagline for your business. Just go to StoryBrand.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.